And to start with, they're going to sell it exclusively, most likely going to sell it to a small group of advertisers and have a light ad load. And that's kind of the case whenever a new video product emerges, like when Snapchat introduced advertising.
Hey gang, it's Tuesday, June 7th. Ross and listeners, welcome to the Behind the Numbers Daily, an eMarketer podcast made possible by marketing architects. I'm Marcus. Today I'm joined by one of our senior analysts covering TV and video for us, is Ross Benish.
Hey Marcus.
Hey chap, thanks for hanging out. Today's fact: the white lines behind a plane are vapor trails. So these white lines in the sky are called vapor trails or contrails. They are the result of aviation fuel being burned. When the fuel is burned, it produces carbon dioxide and water, which condenses into tiny droplets behind a plane in the air. If you pay close attention, you would have seen that there's always a gap between the plane and the vapor trails. That's because it takes time for the gas to form as droplets. And the atmosphere, it depends, they're behind some planes and not others. It depends on the atmosphere. Where the plane is flying needs to have low vapor pressure and low temperature. So that's what's going on up in the sky. Today's real topic though, down on the earth, the other streaming guys. We're talking about all the other streaming players today. We've already covered the giant in this space, which is Netflix. Today we're going to be talking about Disney Plus and how they're getting on. How should we feel about where they are today? HBO Max, we'll talk about them, Paramount Plus, and also Peacock. We'll start with Disney Plus. In January, February, and March of this year, Disney added 8 million new subscribers, bringing its total to 138 million worldwide. In the US and Canada, Disney Plus has 44 million subscribers, as up from 43 last quarter. Total subscribers across all of Disney's streaming portfolio, which includes obviously Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, and Hulu, reached over 205 million. So the breakdown of that being 138 million for Disney Plus, 46 million pretty much for Hulu. They added 300,000 customers in Q1 and 22 million for ESPN Plus. They added about a million. But Ross, what's behind this continued growth for Disney Plus?
It's still a pretty cheap service for consumers, and they have a lot of great content. So it's a good deal, and they still have room to grow, especially in other countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Disney's total, so as I said, 205 million, very close to Netflix. At this point, 221 for Netflix, 205
Well,
for
you're
Disney.
looking at their total subscribers, right? Not just Disney Plus.
Yeah, sorry, Disney. If I said plus, I apologize. Yeah, Disney's total portfolio.
One person can count 3 times if they have the bundle in that situation.
Yes, exactly. So how impressive is this? I mean, they've only been around for 2.5 years, Disney Plus. Is this a big deal that the portfolio is over 200 million and Netflix's total is 221?
Well, yeah, Disney Plus has had a great start, probably the best start of any new streaming service. It's pretty impressive, but they had a massive content library that they were sitting on before they ever launched a streaming service. So, not terribly surprising. And for it to ever achieve profitability, the prices will have to come up, which will make it harder to drive new subscribers.
Yeah, because revenue was up 23%, but net income fell. Disney Plus, they lost money in Q1 because of increased production costs and paying to end several licensing agreements so it could lock some of its content onto its own platform. Some of that content which is responsible for this is Marvel, and it's just Marvel's popularity. Insider Intelligence analyst Daniel Konstantinovich noting that Disney Plus remains the only streaming service with access to releases from Marvel Cinematic Universe. So to what Ross was saying, they've been around for 2.5 years, but the content they've been sitting on has been around for a very long time and is very well established. Ross, it's interesting to see Disney Plus viewers by age as well. Looking at viewers here, we forecast viewers here at Insider Intelligence. Over half of all 18 to 34-year-olds, this is the most highly penetrated group for Disney Plus, over half of 18 to 34-year-olds watch Disney Plus, 40 as compared to 40% of teens and 30% of kids. So Disney, the name conjures up, family content. But as we've mentioned many times before, that they have a lot of different franchises, whether that's Pixar or Star Wars or Marvel or National Geographic. I was surprised to see that it was the 18 to 34-year-olds that made up the majority in terms of penetration of their users.
Well, they tend to skew young. They have a higher share of their users that are young compared to the average streaming service, just due to Disney historically being kid-friendly, G-rated stuff. They're getting a little bit beyond just that. They've brought some of the X-Men movies on, some of the Marvel content like Jessica Jones that used to be on Netflix is coming to Disney Plus. So there will be some stuff that is more like rated R, and it won't all just be so clean, but still pretty clean stuff, non-controversial, kid-aimed content compared to what you would see on HBO Max or Netflix or Paramount Plus. You'll see, a lot of shows aimed at adults.
We're expecting an ad-supported tier from Disney this year, I think, right? Disney said Disney Plus this year with ads?
I don't think they've given the exact date, but it seems like it'll be toward the end of the year.
Okay. Disney Plus's upcoming ad-supported tier. They say it's going to have fewer ads per hour, 4 minutes, than competitors, and won't run ads alongside children's content, according to the Wall Street Journal. But Ross, out of 10, how much does a Disney Plus with ads move the needle for the company?
I guess a 5, because it's not going to really drive new subscribers. It's aimed at increasing revenue per subscriber. And to start with, they're going to sell it exclusively, most likely. Going to sell it to a small group of advertisers and have a light ad load. And that's kind of the case whenever a new video product emerges. Like when Snapchat introduced advertising, they had really high ad prices and they sold it out to just a few advertisers. Same with when Peacock came out. HBO Max did something similar. So, I don't think we're going to see a huge opening of inventory right away. Not going to see, 10 minutes of ads per hour, but I bet it will creep up over time. Start light with select partners, high prices, over time increase the ad load, lower the ad prices, increase the overall ad revenue. That's what I would anticipate.
I thought it was interesting, the note about kids content as well and not running ads alongside children's content. Daniel Konstantinovich, who I mentioned earlier, one of our analysts, he was noting lots of stakeholders don't want kids to be targeted with ads. 3 out of 4 Americans think platforms should stop showing minors targeted ads, according to Morning Consult and Politico. And also EU regulators, they have been especially tough, he says, taking the social media platforms to court and passing legislation to restrict use of minors' data. So they're really just kind of getting out in front of that.
Another thing they're doing to make it more kid-friendly too is the ads aren't going to have alcohol, no political advertising. They're a little restrictive on the types of advertising that they're going to allow in, at least initially.
Right. Let's move to HBO Max. Right before we do, though, I was about to reach for my water and I realized I don't have it with me. Instead, I've replaced it with a vanilla pudding.
Nice.
And I didn't bring it on camera because when we do the podcast, we see each other on the video. And I didn't because I realized that you should only be eaten in private as an adult, because you can't eat a pudding and look like you're not a child. Watch.
They didn't look that childlike.
Can you still take me? Could you still take me seriously after that?
As seriously as I was taking you before.
Okay, thanks, Ross. Appreciate it. Good. Moving on. HBO Max. As Richard Lawler of The Verge notes, HBO added nearly 13 million subscribers last year across both traditional HBO and HBO Max, including growth of 3 million in the last quarter. Now both services combined for nearly 77 million subscribers worldwide. Ross, we just noted that would be nearly 3 times fewer than Netflix. What should we make of HBO Max's position to date?
Well, they got off to a slow start initially because they didn't have wide distribution on things like Fire TV and Roku, and they had confusing array of products like they had HBO Now, HBO Go, HBO Max, but they've overcome that and they're doing pretty well. But it's tough when their overall parent company is straddled with so much debt, which is the case with nearly all these companies that we're covering. So they're positioned to be a top streaming service. They've separated themselves a little bit from the chaff, but they have other internal problems that will restrict them from just running wild with content spending like Netflix and others did to grow their business.
Mm-hmm. Paramount Plus, Ross, they approached the 40 million mark after adding nearly 7 million subscribers in Q1 of this year. As Emma Roth of The Verge notes, D2C revenue, which includes Paramount Plus and its free TV streaming service Pluto TV, jumped 82% year on year. Combined subscription revenue was up 95% for Paramount Plus and Pluto TV, up 95% for subscriber revenue. Subscription revenue, ad revenue was up 59%. So less, but still good. Pluto TV now has nearly 70 million subscribers. Ross, your thoughts on Paramount Plus's position to date?
Well, they can grow big percentage increases because the base still isn't all that big. So, just keep in mind those absolute numbers when you're throwing out big percentage changes. There's still a little bit in an awkward phrase of going from being, a arms dealer of giving their content away to everyone. You used to be able to watch Viacom shows I feel like on every single streaming service that wasn't Viacom owned there for a while, to bringing that stuff in-house. And they still have a few growing pains to get over. Their best show right now, the Western Yellowstone, isn't even on their service. I believe it's on Peacock due to an arrangement they had before they were bringing these shows in-house internally. So they are growing, but for them to really be up there with the top 3 or 4 services, they'll have to develop originals that are compelling, that aren't just limited to sci-fi. When you log on to Paramount Plus, Halo, the Star Trek franchise, Twilight Zone, good stuff, but there isn't as many compelling dramas, animation, or movies. They do produce those things, but I haven't seen much evidence that they've gotten a ton of traction.
Yeah, the Halo was interesting. The live-action Halo TV show became the most streamed original series for Paramount Plus in its first few weeks of release. But yeah, it's a good point with regards to their content. Also, fairly affordable in the grand scheme of things. Paramount Plus offering ad-supported option for $5 a month, ad-free for $10 a month.
And Paramount still has a few services that, they have Showtime, they have BET Plus. I don't get the sense that those are big hits, and you wonder if at what point do they fold them into Paramount Plus, which would make them more enticing. That would beef up the content library a little bit of Paramount Plus.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's finish with Peacock. Comcast's Peacock added about 4 million subscribers in Q1, notes Lillian Rizzo of the Wall Street Journal. She points out the Peacock streaming service jumped over 40% in Q1, thanks in part to a jam-packed February of top streaming events, which included the Super Bowl and the Beijing Winter Olympics. Comcast Chief Executive Brian Roberts said Peacock now has about 13 million paying subscribers and 28 million monthly active accounts as of the end of March. But Ross, your takeaway from Peacock's position to date is what?
They could build a substantial ad business because they will get viewing through those free accounts, but I'm skeptical that the subscriptions are really going to pay off for them. They don't have a ton of paying subscribers, and even with all the marketing they've done and the momentum of having the Super Bowl and the Olympics back to back like that and promoting through Peacock, still didn't move the needle way that much. Makes me skeptical that there's going to be hordes of people that are going to fork over $10 a month for it. But I believe if it was a free service like Pluto TV or Tubi are, that it would dominate that area and that it would be a better service than any of the other free services.
That's it for the lead. It's time now for the halftime report. Ross, just one takeaway, if you could, from the first half of the show.
Well, my main takeaway would be all these streaming services had quarters where they expanded despite Netflix slipping, but they're still all behind Netflix.
Yeah, very fair. That's it for the lead. Remember, folks, to check out yesterday's episode for our surprise question giveaway. So we do this twice a month. Going forward, I'll be doing it on the Weekly Listen. So on the Weekly Listen show, I will be reading out a question where you can win a free prize. So all you have to do is send the correct answer to the question to podcast@emarketer.com and also a screenshot of your review of this podcast, and you can win a free Behind the Numbers Weekly Listen mug. So the question was asked yesterday, but going forward, I will be asked on the Weekly Listen show every other week. All right. It's time now for In Other News, but first, quick word from our sponsor, Marketing Architects. TV advertising is a powerful channel for growth, but the traditional process for launching TV campaigns is expensive and complex. That's why Marketing Architects changed it. With all-inclusive TV advertising, they invest their own money to produce, analyze, and optimize your campaign. All you pay for is media, setting you up for rapid growth at an extreme cost advantage. This approach is so revolutionary, they wrote a 150-page book about it. Go to marketingarchitects.com/book to get your free copy today. You go to the site, click the blue button, and that's it. You get your free book. All right, folks, we are back today in other news. What were the takeaways from the Upfronts and the NewFronts, and how much waste is taking place on linear TV ads? Story 1. The Upfronts were back in person this year in New York as media folks showed off what they have to offer to advertisers. Josh Coblin and Tiffany Sue of the New York Times noted 3 takeaways, well, a bunch, but I picked 3. 1. Spending shifts to streaming ads. Advertisers were spending close to 50%, half of their budgets on streaming ads, according to several media buyer interviews. In 2019, it was 10%. Number 2, Netflix rivals took shots at the company for making advertising an afterthought. Number 3, Fox News made an appearance. The cable news network does not typically appear at the Fox Upfront presentation. But Ross, for you, the biggest takeaway from the 2022 Upfronts and NewFronts, throw that in there, was blank.
It's a return to normalcy, and we just published a report on the Upfronts last week. By return to normalcy, I mean the live events are back, and the flexibility options of canceling your commitments aren't as great as they were 2 years ago. It's more like things used to be in the past.
The name of the report is?
The name of the report is Upfront TV and Digital Video 2022.
If you're a pro subscriber, go to insiderintelligence.com to check that out. Story 2. Ashwin Navin, CEO and co-founder of Samba TV, a provider of omni-screen analytics, recently said that with $68 billion poured into linear TV ads every year, the substantial waste taking place in this sector should be a wake-up call to advertisers. He points to research showing that 94% of linear ad impressions in Q1 only reached half of audiences. An article by Advanced TV also points out that these same audiences saw an average of 144 linear ads per day, while just under half, 45% of American households saw only 11 ads per day in comparison. 11 versus 144. But Ross, your takeaway from this research is blank.
That there's a big difference between the top half and the bottom half of households in terms of media consumption. And I think this problem would happen with any media product, not just TV. The bottom half of viewers probably aren't watching a whole lot. They may only be watching a few minutes per day, but you have many people watching hours and hours per day, absorbing all those ad impressions. To say streaming is the alternative, I would question that, because with streaming, the bottom half in terms of ad impressions might see no impressions at all, because they're rich people who can afford to pay to avoid ads through their streaming products. So those stats are interesting, but I think you could apply them to almost any media format if you're just looking at the percentage of ads shown by the top half of viewers and the percentage of ads shown by the bottom half in terms of viewing time.
Mm-hmm. That is all we have time for. Ross, thanks for hanging out.
Thanks, Marcus.
And thank you to Victoria. She edits the show. Thanks to everyone listening in. We're on Twitter now, so remember to follow us at justmarcus_BTN for updates about the show. We'll see you tomorrow for the Behind the Numbers Reimagining Retail show, a new marketer podcast made possible by Marketing Architects, where our very own Sarah Lebo will be hosting analysts Susie David Canyon and David Morris, talking all about whether buy now, pay later is here to stay.